Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first ever Saturday Salon, our online series from the virtual Centaur Theatre. Now that our doors are closed by COVID, we're keeping the art alive by having these conversations about the shows that are to be, were to be, will be eventually. And today we're talking very excitedly about Fences by August Wilson. I'd like to invite my colleague and friend from Black Theatre Workshop, the artistic director, Quincy Armorer, to join me for this conversation. Hey, Quincy, how are you?
Hello, Tina. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm moving, so it's a bit crazy, but it's exciting. It's nice to take a break and actually go back to the things I love and talk about the art.
Yeah.
This show, had the good fortune to be able to do this because you brought me a play, didn't you?
I did, and it kind of went a little bit. It was this play, and I brought it to you kind of like so.
Thank you.
Yay, collaboration.
Yay. Practice makes perfect.
Exactly.
So, and when you brought this in, we have the luck actually to have three of your collaborators and brilliant artists that were going to be part of this production. Mike Payette, the director, and Lucinda Davis, who was your co-star. So welcome, Mike and Lucinda. Thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to ask you, Quincy, what made you pick Fences? I mean, August Wilson has an amazing repertoire of beautiful plays, but why this play now?
It's my favorite of his plays, first and foremost, and then it was also just about, I wanted to do it for a while, and I just needed to find the right time in our programming to make it happen. It took a little while. Now we're doing at least, a couple of shows per season. But when I first became the AD, we were only doing one main stage a year. And so particularly with a focus on trying to do the works of Canadian writers, which is really where I started. The first show I programmed was Harlem Duet, coincidentally directed by Mike and starring Lucinda. That was the first main stage I did. Then I did a play by Omari Newton, and then it was Donna Michelle St. Bernard. And so it took a while for me to find the time for this play. And it was this one really because I love the story. I think personally I connected to it in a way that really had to do with Troy and him as a father, and looking at that father relationship with him. We hear about him and his father as the son, and then to have him be the father and the different relationships he has with his children in the play. And for me, it was a matter of not being a parent myself, but watching my siblings become parents, which was really interesting because they're also the only people who were also parented in the same household that I was parented. So to watch them become parents was really interesting, and I connected in that way. That's sort of like the roundabout way that I connected to this play. It's
true. The notion of parents and legacy in that regard is so powerful in the play. I want to just talk for a moment. You have I'm thrilled to have inherited this wonderful relationship with Black Theatre Workshop at Centaur that has a long history before I got there, and even before you got there.
Me too. Yeah.
But you got to Centaur as a young, aspiring actor, and I think we have a little bit of memorabilia here. There you are. So what year was this? You were an usher at Centaur.
I was an usher, and I was Lane's assistant front of house manager. So this is like somewhere between 2000 and 2003.
Oh my God, you're so
17
adorable.
or 20 years ago.
You look exactly as young and beautiful.
Oh, well, you know what they say. I won't say what I know. You know what they say.
We know. Yes, we do know that.
I know, and that was like, I started working at Centaur in 1998. I was first as a box office clerk. And then I like to say I made a lateral move to becoming an usher. and then from there, just, so I have a long personal connection with Centaur Theatre as well. So it means a lot to be doing this play at Centaur and with Centaur.
Fantastic. So when did you and Mike start? Like you say that your first show as an artistic director at BTW was to work with Mike on Harlem Duet. So what was when did you and Mike start talking about this show?
Oh my goodness, I don't even quite remember where it is. It's a few years ago now, but I will say that when I was really getting into producing this play, it it was always. I mean, I always wanted to play Troy, but it was always with Lucinda and always with Mike as director. So I started. I don't know, Mike. Maybe you want to jump in here because I don't remember exactly when we started talking, but I never talked to any other director about this play. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah, we're year 2020, yes? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Still, it's still 2020.
Yeah, I think we must have had like our beginning conversations like early 2018, I want to say,
At least,
a couple of years ago. And yeah, you're right, Quincy. It was always about this trifecta and how to make it work. And you know, that was beyond knowing anything else, beyond even knowing if there was going to be a collaboration or not with BTW and Centaur. This is even before Centaur, before you came on board, was that, you know, if we're going to bring this play into the world in Montreal at this time, then these are the folks that I would love to do it with. So it was a no-brainer to just say yes and just see when it would actually happen.
It's sort of amazing, you know, those kinds of long-term relationships, that artistic relationships that we have the gift of in Canada, and particularly here in Montreal, and for you guys at Black Theatre Workshop and Centaur. Actually, you all have histories at both organizations, which I think is so fantastic. And Lucinda, so you were brought into this whether you wanted to or not, right? They decided and you were there.
Oh, I wanted to.
And so for a part like Rose, I mean, it's interesting for women, you know, roles for women. We're always talking about the fact that there aren't enough, and they're not rich. You know, they're often stereotypes, or they're limited. But this part is such a beautiful role. So when were you aware of it before Quincy talked about it, or how do you feel about playing this part?
It's interesting because I don't know if Rose was based at all on August Wilson's mother, but she is just a perfect woman. Her compassion, her selflessness, she just gives so much of herself so that others can shine and rise, and does it with a smile and with such grace. And I find her quite difficult to and I was looking forward to, you know, sinking my teeth and working with others on this role, because she's just perfect. There's no flaw. She takes everything on with such strength and such grace, that I find her quite difficult to wrap my head around, because so many times you like to look at the flaws, and you like to look at, you know, where there's grit, and she's just this warm light. No matter what happens to her, she has her faith in God and her belief in her family and her love for her family to strengthen her, and so I'm looking forward to playing a part that's she's so grand and graceful, and yet so hidden, because she lets others step in front of her.
You know, there's something about her. I was thinking about they say that forgiveness is one of the most complex and powerful human capacities, and she seems to really have that as a character, and offer that up with utter generosity. So an actor like you, I've worked with you only a little bit. I think you were in my very first show. Yeah. I think we have a couple of pictures of that. I think it was a complete sort of sidebar in your life as an actor. But can we do a little bit of a montage of Lucinda's history at Centaur? Because we have some great pictures. You've done a number of shows. There's you and Quincy in Intimate Apparel, which is was that a Centaur show purely, or was that with Black Theatre Workshop as well?
No, that was just Centaur.
Just Centaur.
Great.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful Lynn Nottage play. I just love that picture. And then the Madonna Painter by Michel Marc Bouchard. You know what's so fun about that is I directed that play in Toronto at Factory, and so it's kind of wonderful to see another version of it, the English version of that. And then we also have, of course, the hilarious 39 steps. Joe, I want the other one though. I like this one, but my favorite is this one. The two of you in that last scene, I was on the floor the whole time. It was so fantastic. So it was a great pleasure for me to come into town and discover you as an actor. And I remember the audition, and I could tell that you were like a grand dramatic actress, and you did this hilarious audition. I was like, do you really want to do this play? And you were like, yes, I do. It's so great. And there you are. That was your premiere at Centaur, In Doubt.
Yeah,
It's just an amazing play and an amazing role. So did you guys see her on all of those shows over the years? Yes.
Awesome. Yep, that's for sure.
Well, while we're on it though, because Quincy, you and I'm jumping around in my order, but you and Lucinda have a long love affair on stage, don't you? We already saw you from. Yes, there we go. We saw it in the Brady Bunch moment. We saw you in Intimate Apparel, but the most recent one is, of course, Black Girl in Search of God. That was a co-production, and it went to the NAC. So, can you guys talk about collaborating over the years as artists?
I mean, the first time we met. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that it's just a beautiful thing. You know, I think as actors, as performers, you look for that connection that you find with people on stage, and with some actors, there's just an ease. There's just a way of you just connect in a visceral, deep way. And I think the first time that Lucinda and I played together, we just found something very, very special. And it's just been there throughout. You know, we've been this Fences, I was going to say would have been, but I'll say will be the third time that we're going to be partnered as husband and wife. But we've also did Beethoven Lives Upstairs with Geordie Productions, where I was the uncle and Lucinda played my nephew, and we did Richard III. The three of us did Richard III together with Metachroma Theater. So there's a long history there, and it's just, I don't know, Lucinda, what it's like for you. It's just so easy. I find it so easy to share the stage with you.
Yes, I remember our first time we got to work together collaborate, if you will, was at the audition for Blackstone Goal at BTW. Right. And at that very moment, I sensed something special. And I mean, it didn't work out for us on stage, but I knew at that moment I hoped to work with you again on stage. Because we're friends, we trust each other. And so when we're on stage together, all we need to do is just work on the text, because the intimacy and the trust is already there.
Oh, it's great. It's so beautiful. Yeah. I could talk about that all day, but I want to kind of go back for a moment to the play, to Fences, and ask you about your relationship to, I mean, this is a play set in 50s America, pre-civil rights, you know, Philadelphia, right? Is it Pittsburgh? It's Philadelphia. Yeah, I always mix those two cities up. And I wanted to ask you, as Canadians, do you relate to this period in American history and particularly in Black American history? Because Canadian history is so different.
I mean, August Wilson and so many prolific writers or playwrights who write about that time are writing about community, and community in a historical sense, in a legacy sense, in a future sense. And so that means, you know, to a certain extent, even though we're 2020, is that we can see a lot of cyclical themes appearing, and although I don't personally associate with some of the specific things that these characters go through, some I do, I can understand certainly on a sympathetic level, by virtue of community, by virtue of this still being my community. You know, if we go really uniquely into some of these characters, you know, Corey, for instance, who's Troy's son, you know, we can think of what just happened with the Ahmaud Arbery, and the notion of the movement of Black Lives Matter and jogging while Black. I think of Corey Maxwell as one of those figures who is sort of timeless, regardless of the period, and so that's what keeps it relatable, at least for me.
I think I'm glad you bring that up, because I was thinking about that, especially in terms of what's going on in America right now, and how important it is for us to remember that it's part of a long cycle and that's also what August Wilson was doing in this is part of a cycle of plays that's tracking that arc of repression and destruction and then the resilient spirit within it. For you, Lucinda, does that, as a woman in this context, how do you come to that?
Well, this is set just before women's lib, if you will, and the feminism that went along with it, and so often I feel separate from, if you will, white feminism. And so when I look at a character like Rose, who again gives so much of herself, is working and is supporting her family, how much of her rights as a woman and her rights as a Black person are often overlooked. You know? So I look forward to trying to figure out her strength in the fact that you don't have many moments of her having this is where I stand and this is how I feel. It's very specific, her moments towards her family and what occurs in the play. So the resilience of the human spirit under such pressure and such oppression is amazing and beautiful, and I hope that we can all give it justice, so that we can look at this time, be grateful that it's not the same now, and continue to persevere and judge when glimpses of it reappear, and
never forget to keep the history alive, so that we know what we won't go back to. I also keep thinking in COVID times, what's interesting, how now that we're all having to cook all our meals and clean our houses and do everything ourselves, I'm like, oh my God. And Rose, it's just second nature. It's just
picking beans. Picking beans.
I wish I had a little Rose in me for that. And how about for you, Quincy, in terms of identity?
That can still. Oh, sorry, I think I was frozen a little bit. But what I was going to say, in terms of the COVID times, and when we look at this play again, there's many scenes that we can sort of look at, especially like the Friday nights between Troy and Bono on the porch, where everybody sort of congregates on the porch with some social distancing. I mean, there's a parallel there. There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
I think.
There's the porch.
Yeah. In terms of just riffing off of what Mike said earlier, when Mike mentioned earlier, Black Lives Matter, I think that for me is something that really answers the why now, or how audiences now can connect to it. Because for me, it really just is a matter of, Black Lives Matter is not a new thing. It's just new terminology. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think
absolutely
what August Wilson was doing when he wrote these plays and the civil rights movement of all those times, it's always been Black Lives Matter. We've just never called it that until recently. And so that for me is why I find the work of August Wilson and many plays of the genre very, very timeless, because as far as we've come, as much as things have changed, as different as American and Canadian societies can be and are, there is, unfortunate as it may be, a common thread throughout, and that's something that audiences now can connect to. I think in the same way that audiences back in 1983 or
Yeah.
85 rather, was when it was first done, even though it's a story set in 1957. So it really captures the timelessness of the story, I think.
It does. And I like the idea of that thread. I want to ask you, Mike, a little bit about you. This is your first August Wilson, but it's not your first American play by a Black American writer. I was really proud to present Choir Boy in my very first season at Centaur that I programmed. And so do you feel the connection between Tyrell, Alvin McCraney, and August Wilson, like the heritage of that, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Outside of the conversations that they bring to theater, they're just excellent writers. They're just excellent playwrights, and they both understand, as I mentioned before, understand the notion of community. They're reflective of the past while observing the present in the relationship between the two. But oddly enough, McCraney was Wilson's assistant.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. McCraney was Wilson's assistant on his last play, radio play.
Wow.
Yeah, and so McCraney actually had a lot of dramaturgical influence from August Wilson, and one of the things that he pulled from that sort of mentorship was the notion of the heart leading the story. So it really centers around character, on the human experience, and that's not just what we see on the stage. It's also how he works and how he wanted to. How both McCraney and August Wilson wanted to be better theater artists and better human beings. So as being grounded and founded on the notion of the heart first, I think is palpable within the works. And that's an attractive thing for a director, at least for me, for someone who likes to get into the sort of the dirt, the flaws, the beauty of the human condition.
It's great. I know. I always think myself that in crime you follow the money, and in drama you follow the love, and it's kind of wonderful to see also in what you all bring to this particular play and project. I mean, we all do everything we can to make things as good and creative as possible when we make a show, but a show like this one has such a special position in our collective need for storytelling, and in our also, as you say, in relation to the Black Lives Matter movement and the moment we're living in, and the potential for change, like especially now with COVID. I think the potential for the future to look different is important, but it will only look different if we're really clear on what we want to leave behind and what we want to bring with us. And I think that Wilson captures that so beautifully in this play. Before we go to questions, I just wanted to ask you, Lucinda, what were you doing to prepare for this? I know you had a special way of preparing for this role. What was that?
Well, so much of what you see on Rose is domestic in terms of taking care of the home. When people come, making sure they're okay. Can I bring you something? I'll make you something to eat. And there's one moment where she is hanging clothes on the line, and she sings this the spiritual "Jesus be a fence around me," and just that notion of being supported by her faith and wanting to be wrapped in God's love. My mother is very religious and a very spiritual woman. So I certainly can relate to that love and support feeling by God and by her faith, and feeling strengthened by it. So I listen to a lot of gospel songs and a lot of choirs jubilantly singing, where they feel the strength through their pain.
That is my greatest, what's the word? I wish I'd grown up in the gospel church. It would just I love it so much. And I'm so a visitor to it, but I think it's just such great, inspiring. And I'm not Christian, I'm not religious or anything, but I am when I hear that music. I find it changes everything. We have a question from one of our delightful actors in town, who I always love seeing perform, and he stays connected to all of the show. He's such a great supporter of the community, Stephen Booth, and he has love. He has a question with. So that he says, I'm just going to read it because it's a two-parter. A lot of theater companies had to put their seasons on hold for COVID-19. With this in mind, are postponed shows, including Fences, going to be a factor when programming future seasons? Or are you too uncertain about being able to reopen your theaters? So I'm going to start with you, Quincy, on that one. For Black Theater Workshop.
It's a great question, Stephen. And it's definitely going to have a huge impact. I think right now with the upcoming season, we don't know when we're going to be able to actually gather, and so my season is altering, and it's what's going to end up happening, or at least right now what's going to end up happening is different than it was 3 weeks ago, which is different than it was 3 weeks before that. So there's so much uncertainty. And of course, Fences is something that both BTW and Centaur are committed to. So we want to, and I'll go as far to say, are going to find a time to produce it in a later season. And in my case, that certainly does mean bumping some other shows potentially. So it's going to play a huge impact, and it's difficult to navigate the uncertainty because things change and then they change again and then they change again. But for right now, I have no intentions of not pursuing a production of Fences.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, a day is like a year, and a week is like a millennia at this point. It's such a crazy time. Mike too, because as artistic director at Geordie, you're dealing with it as well, and it's the O'Hare Airport aspect of everything, where the shows you were going to do are piling up on the runway, and you're trying to figure out what plane to call up next. But I think for me, the thing that's really important about this one is I really want to make sure that when we do put it on stage, we do it where the audience comes with open arms, open hearts, and without fear. Because I think that the big challenge of the COVID crisis is going to be getting to a place where we know enough and know how to do everything well enough, either through a vaccine or treatment or whatever it is, that we all feel safe in public again, because I think there's a lot of fear in general in our lives at the moment. And a play go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that, Ida, and say that I also think that when we are finally able to gather again in theater, which is a home for a lot of us, I think our audiences are also going to be viewing the work that we do very differently. I think important. Relationship to space and relationship to connection and physical contact is going to be viewed differently. And so I'm excited to return, and I'm also really interested in seeing how post-COVID audiences are going to be responding to shows that they see on stage in this way.
Absolutely. And we're also going to be connecting to the value of what theater is in our community. We'll have a renewed relationship with that, I think. So I think I'm looking at the clock. We have 2 minutes sort of left on the little timer now. So I just wanted to, there's a question from Kathleen Stavert. What is something that you don't miss from the old pre-COVID theatrically or otherwise? Mike.
What is something that you don't miss from the old world? Well, I'll twist it. I'll answer it indirectly. I think it's the pursuit of doing something for the sake of doing it, only for the sake of doing it. That's something that I don't miss. There are constant questions as to why, and this is in theater and in life. Why do this? Is it important? Does it give you joy? Does it, exactly, does it actually merit stress, anxiety, all of those things? And so I look forward to the future and actually keeping some of those questions alive in the pursuit of a better, healthier, safer world in my brain.
Fantastic. What about you, Lucinda?
There's always the fear of, theater and getting bums in seats. So I look forward to theater being the advocacy for humanity again, where we tell the stories that are important and that are going to fulfill everybody. And that was what theater was for. It was a communication for the masses. So I look forward to theater being sacred and relevant again.
I'm going to keep that advocacy for humanity. I love that. That's such a great way of describing it. What about for you, Quincy?
Wow. What do I not miss?
What will you not miss post-COVID? Yeah.
I don't know, because there's just so much that I actually do miss. It's so hard to think about the things that I don't. You know what I mean? I can't. I miss the three of you. I miss being able to hug you and squeeze you, and so I'm sure there are things that I don't miss, but they're outweighed by my desire to just be with people and to connect with people again, because it's you know, I think we all get into what we do because of that, and to not have that right now is just a little bit of extra salt on an already deep wound, and so I'm looking forward to us all healing and being able to come back and embrace love again.
I totally agree. That's beautiful. For me, the thing is that I've been reminded that taking what's in front of you and making something out of it is the thing I'm looking forward to carrying forward into this, whatever the future looks like, because it's hard to see in the fogginess that we're living in right now. But but to be where you are, look at what's there and use that and make something from it is my great hope. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. It's so I know we were all a bit nervous that these online things are so weird, but it was really a great conversation, and it was actually great to talk to you. And maybe we could even have like a Zoom drink sometime.
Yes, that'd be wonderful.
It'd be so
I'm
great.
all about that.
It was nice seeing all of your faces, even then 4 boxes on my screen.
I know, it's so weird, but we'll be together again. Don't know where, don't know when. There's a song that goes with that, but I won't sing it just to save you all. Thank you so much. And yes, this will be online. So, but check us out online again. And the next up will be on May 14th, I think. Somebody tell me if I'm right. I think it's the 14th. 16th. Thank you. May 16th. And it is going to be Jackie Maxwell. And we're going to talk about, hilariously, Paradise Lost, which feels like what we're living right now. So, thank you very much. And we will, as soon as they open the door, man, I am running out and looking for you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
You too. Cheers. Bye.
Bye, everybody.